Hello and welcome to Raising the Bar. Raising the Bar was set with the intention of bringing you untold success stories of real people in Hong Kong to inspire you to consistently keep raising the bar in your lives. And today we have with us Hersha Chellaram. Hersha is a mom, she's a wife, she takes really good care of her body, her health, her well-being, and not only that, she's also a certified yoga instructor doing both individual sessions and group workshops and trainings, and she does it all, she seems to have it all, and we're going to find out how and why today. So welcome, Hersha.
Thanks, nice to be here.
So I wanted to ask you, actually, how is it that you manage to balance all these different areas of your life so well? You know, many times we're told that in order to excel in one area, like to be an athlete or to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to give up on other areas, for example, family or social life. But you seem to have struck a balance. How did that happen for you?
I think for everyone, a balance it's interchangeable. So a work-life balance for me would be very different from a work-life balance for you. Mm-hmm. And I agree to a certain extent that prioritizing, finding out what is important to you in different areas, and really focusing on maybe a few things. But some people, they like, for example, being an athlete. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to be an Olympic athlete, obviously you need to 100% dedicate.
So your objective really is to have an all-rounded life with a little bit of everything. Is that what your dream life looks like?
Absolutely. In terms of my profession, which is yoga, now all my studies are dedicated to that. Okay. And all my education and further education will always be in that field of yoga. I will always continue to learn in that way. Or a side thing that will be related to add to my training. Whereas before, when I first went to university, I was actually undeclared. And I decided to try out all different things, and it was great because I got a whole world of experience with different things. Mm. And then slowly when you find something that you resonate with, and I think this is the key for finding balance in any kind of life. If you resonate with something, you know, oh, I really enjoy this, and this is something that I really want to do. Doesn't matter how well or how badly you do it. If you love it, you start from the beginning, and then you can dedicate.
So how did you actually prioritize for yourself? I'm sure in your list of things to do, there are priorities, there are roles that you would put on top of other roles. Could you give us a snapshot of what is your priority?
I think for me now, my priority is being a mother to my kids, because my kids are really young and they're still very dependent. Okay. Teaching yoga is also, it's a dream of mine, it's a passion of mine. And initially when my daughter was first born, I thought I would put that all aside and just become a full-time mother, which I did for the first full year of my daughter's life. I didn't teach any yoga, and I was just dedicated 100% mom. And I loved it. Yeah. But I was still a little bit itchy to do work. I loved it. And people were asking me, will you come and teach me? I really need a yoga teacher. And I would kind of come and help them out, but I never did it dedicated and serious. And then I felt like, well, people are asking me, and, you know, so I decided, okay, let me just try once a week. And so I just did one evening a week where I would teach a yoga class. Okay. And I started out that way. And then I had another child. Again, the first year of my child's life, I didn't work at all. Okay. And then just right when my child was now becoming a little bit more independent, and I could take some time away, then an opportunity fell into my lap. It's a matter of just prioritizing. Yeah. I think in terms of the yoga, saying no sometimes is important. Because it's very easy. I think when I first started, everyone said, will you teach me? Will you teach me? Will you teach me? And then I ended up saying yes to everything. Because I was so excited and so enthusiastic. Yeah. But then you kind of feel, I think with work-life balance, you kind of feel, if something's out of balance, you feel it. You feel like it's not as joyful anymore. Okay. You feel it emotionally. Emotionally, mentally, you feel a little bit tired. So then I decided to pull it back a little bit. Okay. And pass on some of my classes to other very qualified teachers that I knew and I trusted. Okay. And then kind of create that balance again. Because for me, my priority is to find a balance. Okay. My priority is not to make a lot of money or have the most amount of clients. Okay. So again, like I said, it just depends on what someone's priority is. Yes. to try and figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's really key. So if your priority is to find a balance, you are not going to be full on into any one area, and you're going to balance that. And for you, number one was your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, my husband and I have this conversation every so often where we've been both very busy the last few months. And we just sat there, the kids had gone to bed, and we looked at each other and we said, we need to go out on a date. We haven't gone out on a date in a long time. So we decided, instead of making it like a strict once a week thing, we said, look, let's keep it open, but at least twice a month.
Okay.
We have an evening where it's just the two of us. We go out for a nice dinner, we dress up, or we go see a movie. Every couple of weeks, it's like very, very dedicated.
Okay.
Because there's some times where he's traveling, or I'm busy with something.
Yes. So you let it flow. It's not
so
rigid.
We let it flow.
Yeah.
It's not rigid.
Okay.
Obviously, I think that's the one thing my husband and I would prefer, is to actually have a little bit more alone time. I think now that the kids are a little older, we're considering maybe going away for a weekend.
Oh, very nice.
Which will be a first. So
okay, since the kids were born.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. Do you check in with yourself often? Like you just said that, you know, if you were not saying no, then it was getting emotionally draining for you. So how often do you check in with yourself and just sense that, is this working for me? Am I happy? Or what do I need to reassess?
I think I check in with myself at least once, if not twice a day.
Okay.
So I wake up in the morning, and whether my kids have already crawled into the bed or not, I kind of wake up and I just sit, and my kids know not to bother me when I sit. I mean, they're still kind of shuffling around or chatting to each other.
Okay.
But before having family and kids, I used to have a very, very dedicated meditation practice where I would do an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening.
Okay.
Obviously, with kids in the mix, it's very, very difficult to do that. I still make it a habit of sitting, but when I sit with my kids around, I'm doing it more to set an example. And the quality of my meditation is not as good as it, you know, obviously where they're like, Mommy, can you get out of bed now? But during that time, I take my time to center, to breathe, and to clear my thoughts, and really just check in. You don't have to sit for hours and hours to do this. And I just recommend you just get up and sit in your bed and check in. How am I feeling today? What is going on? Am I exhausted? Does my body feel really tired? You know, how many hours have I slept? And kind of checking in with yourself in the morning, you can then say, okay, this is my list of things that I would like ideally to accomplish. Can I maybe choose 3 to do today really well? And then take some time where I can actually not feel so tired. And then take some time to look after the other things in my life. And some days, at the end of the day, I'll do the same, but I'll do that with a notebook and a piece of paper.
Right.
Sometimes when
at the end of the day.
Okay. A lot of the times, I think I've noticed this with a lot of people as well that come to the yoga classes and the meditation classes. They say, oh, I find it really hard to go to sleep because by the time I go to sleep, I have a lot on my mind. And that's actually very normal, because when your mind is at this state of trying to switch off, it tries to regurgitate all those other things that are kind of laying on your mind and weighing down on your mind. So I always have a notebook and a piece of paper next to my bed where I just put down absolutely everything that I need to do.
That's a very useful practice.
And even in a meditation practice too, if you're just starting out with a meditation practice and you're like, oh, I forgot about this, just pick it up, write it down. It's there on your paper, it's going to wait for you. And then you can go back to...
So in the middle of the meditation, you can just pick up the paper and write it down. Great, because many people think that, oh, I'm not supposed to, so I'm in a meditative state. But it's nice to know that, you know, it's up to you. You can just put that down, and if you get a thought, you can write it down, get back to your meditation, so that's off your mind, really.
Exactly.
It's not still niggling there in the background.
Yeah, exactly, because you won't have a peaceful meditation. Well, I'm going to start with the different areas. When I was studying and training to become a yoga teacher, I spent a year in South India, and I traveled with the Himalayan Academy, the monks from the Himalayan Academy. They had this travel study program. And part of that program, they advised to develop a kind of like a business plan for yourself, and it covered all these different areas. And they said, create a 5-year plan and write down everything you want to do in your life. So you start with your physical body.
Okay.
Are you happy with your physical body? You start with your mental, like intellectual. So are you happy with your career? Are there any vocational or educational things you want to do? They also covered cultural and social and spiritual and family.
Okay.
And so they covered all those things, and they said you have to create a family plan. So it's not just, if you're a single person, you create one for yourself.
Okay.
But if you are a family, you create one for the whole family where you sit and you discuss it with your whole family.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
And I kind of took that on board, and I've been kind of following that ever since. So my husband and I have this thing we do, which we call our top 10. And we renew it every year. And it's basically 10 things that are, you know, across these different boards.
Okay.
These different areas.
Yeah.
And we just discuss what are the top 10 things for you that you'd like to do this year. And you don't necessarily have to accomplish it this year. It can be like a long-term thing.
Right.
And we write these things down. We refer to it over the course of the year. And I think that's really what's given us exactly what are we prioritizing in our lives. It gives you a little bit of a direction. And then we kind of look at, okay, where are we right now in terms of reaching those areas?
Right.
So what do we need to do to get from A to B?
Perfect, yeah.
And then between my husband and myself, we discussed, okay, well, how can we support each other through that?
Okay.
So my husband wanted to start Kung Fu lessons.
Okay.
And so he did, and now he's very, very dedicated in his Kung Fu, and whatever I can do to support that. So we try to juggle it where at least one of us is home with the kids on the evening that the other person is out.
Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but for the most part, I mean, life is always a big juggling act anyway, so.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So you have this list of, it's like a business plan for your life, and how many areas did you say you're on it?
I would say 6.
6 areas.
I think I mentioned about 6.
Okay.
Physical, mental, cultural, social, educational, spiritual.
Okay, 6 areas, and then you have goals for each area.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do it so formally.
Okay.
I mean, especially now.
Yeah.
I think the first time I did it like I spent a lot of time because I had a lot of time. But now we just sit down over the course of an evening and we just discuss it, and we go late into the night to discuss it.
Okay.
And we just cover it very informally now.
Okay, great. That's a great practice for couples to take on because, as you said, you're a unit now, so it's not just about you. You need to be in the same place, in the same page as your partner, and have that congruency. So I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah?
100%.
How often do you review this list, just casually? I know that you set it every year, but how often do both of you review it?
Well, after we do it, I type it up and I email it.
Okay, to both yourself and him?
To both myself and him. And so we have it on our computer.
Okay.
I refer to it, I would say, maybe every couple of months.
Okay.
To kind of track it.
Yes.
How often he refers to it, I'm not so sure. Sometimes life takes you where you would never imagine yourself going, and it ends up being some of the most exciting adventures you'll ever have in your life. So I think while it's important to have a plan, not to be so attached to the plan is key, is to just kind of say, okay, you know, this is really not my focus, but let me run with it and see where it's going.
Yeah, that's great advice, not to really be attached to it. I find that in my sessions as well, you know, especially with young mothers, there's kids, there's husband, there's in-laws, and there's life that gets in the way, and if you're too attached to it, it affects happiness and well-being, which is really the experience of life that you're going to take away anyway.
Absolutely, and especially for young moms and new moms. Having a baby in your life can be such an overwhelming transition because all of a sudden, things that you had, time, independence, you don't have that anymore. You have these beautiful souls that are so dependent on you. There's a concept that I call, it's called mother's guilt. Moms always feel guilty to go around, to do things, am I good enough? Am I doing right by my children? It's always something that weighs on your mind. But I also feel that unless you are blessed with being completely satisfied in looking after your children 100%, which a lot of moms are, but I had to level with myself a little bit and realize that I wanted to be a working mom. I wanted, especially my daughter, to see that I was working part-time and contributing to the well-being of the family in all the different areas. And I wanted her to be involved in a certain way, to be empowered in a certain way. Plus, I enjoy teaching yoga. Okay. Let's face it, I enjoy teaching yoga. And I enjoy working, and I wanted to be a working person. So it's a matter of, I think, finding something that you're very interested in. And doing it in a way where it's not, you don't have to choose. Maybe you can involve your kids. So for example, I've just recently developed a program called a Mom and Baby Yoga program. And when I had my little children and I was at home with my kids, I was actually experimenting with them as little babies, doing yoga for them as babies, which combined a lot of the traditional Indian massage that we were handed down from our grandmothers.
Right.
And you know, experimenting and learning about postnatal yoga, getting my body back into shape.
Okay.
But doing it where I didn't have to leave my child to go to a postnatal yoga class.
Right.
And I was doing something that was actually really fun for me to bond with my baby and me to feel good about myself and me to actually meditate with her on my lap. And in those early stages, it was such a precious time. And then when my son was born, it's like, okay, well, how do you incorporate a newborn baby and a toddler and get something out of it for yourself? And so that's one of the little projects that I'm working on is, you know, kind of writing so many little notes and ideas I put down just on, you know, Post-its and notepads and trying to actually consolidate it and create it into an actual book. And I had my sister, who's a photographer, come and take pictures of me doing yoga with my kids over that time.
Okay.
And I'm so grateful for that because my kids are, it's so fast how they grow.
Okay, so we were just talking about mother's guilt. It's a phenomenon that I'm hearing actually for the first time. How have you tackled a mother's guilt in your life?
I think I realized that I was being a little bit harsh on myself.
Okay.
Because I had, you know, every person has dreams and aspirations of where they want to go. And I think it comes down to being very real with yourself. And saying to yourself, what do you want out of life? What do you want from family life and career life? And then just putting aside the judgment. And letting go of the idea of being a superwoman. Because I think a lot of mums, I think there's a lot of pressure on women today to have it all and do it all. And I think a lot of women they do a lot. But the internal mental and emotional health and well-being suffers a lot from it through this guilt. And do I look good enough? Am I good enough mother? Am I this? Am I that? And I think this is where a lot of this guilt comes from. It's very, very self-inflicted.
Right. They're not matching up to their own standards. Really, right? Yeah.
Yes, but actually the truth is, how realistic are those standards? Could you try to create this idea of a perfect life, or could you celebrate the chaos that is your life and enjoy it and laugh your way through it?
How easy was it for you to give up that judgment? And is there anything that you did specifically to overcome that we can use for advice for mothers that are going through the same thing?
Well, I think the realization came when I was at a very, very low moment.
Okay.
And one of the things I like to share with a lot of people, which I'm only now realizing is quite a common occurrence along a lot of new moms, especially moms that are second-time moms. You kind of go into this, they call it a postnatal depression. So one day I was home alone with the kids and my newborn started crying. And I was so exhausted, and my son, Shahan, wouldn't stop crying. And then my 2-year-old at the time was throwing a 2-year-old tantrum, and she started crying. And I was so sleep deprived and so overwhelmed that instead of looking after them, I just started crying myself. And there we were, the three of us, wailing in the apartment like 3 children. And I was just not really sure what to do with myself.
Yeah.
And then just in a split second, I kind of watched the scene, you know, you kind of step back from yourself a little bit, and then I started laughing. Hormones, I know. And I started laughing so much, and I said, this is so ridiculous. But I felt so good from just having a good cry, and I realized that I really wasn't giving myself that space for my own emotions and my own feelings.
Right.
And so when I thought it was so ridiculous and so funny, I said, okay, I'm not going to say, don't be so pathetic, Hersha. because that's what most people do. Don't be so pathetic.
Yeah.
Pick yourself up.
That would be a judgment.
That would be a negative judgment.
Yes.
And say, okay, you're feeling like this. Acknowledge your own feelings.
Okay.
And then it's actually quite funny. If my husband could walk in and see us now, he'd be like, what's going on? And so kind of being able to actually step back a little bit made me realize. And so that was kind of a turning point for me.
Yes. Do you remember a moment where you were very challenged in the area of striking a balance and how you overcame that challenge?
I think the one time when I was completely at a low was when I was actually in the corporate world, before any of this yoga stuff.
Okay.
And I was working in New York City at a PR firm, and big clients, and I was in the office at midnight, a lot of the nights, and I just was exhausted. And I wasn't happy. And I was irritated, and I didn't wake up in the morning saying, hooray, time to go to work. I was like kind of dreading that. And it was the first time I actually had felt like that in my life, because even throughout my university or my school life, I never felt that. I was always like, great, I'm going to school, I'm so excited, or great, I'm so excited to start my day. And I think for the first time I felt that. And when you have those moments, it's important to pay attention.
And so when you discovered that, hey, I'm not feeling good, did you immediately do something about that?
No, then there came the second step, which was developing the courage to do something about it.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people, it's figuring out what to do instead,
Yeah.
or how to change. How do you find a change? What you know, if you've been doing something for 20 years and you're tired of it, you don't really know anything else.
Yeah.
So what's next? What do you do?
Yeah.
How do you go about it? And then how do you find the courage to go and do it? And I think,
how did you find the courage?
I think community. I think
Yeah.
for me I was very lucky. I've always had a yoga community and a yoga family growing up.
Okay.
I have a yoga guru, Swami Satchidananda.
Yeah.
And when I was living in New York, he was actually just an hour's flight away. So long weekends, I used to just go to his ashram and renew and recharge and ask for some beautiful spiritual advice, which I always got. And I did that one weekend where I was just so burnt out, and he says, well, why don't you just take a leave of absence off work and come hang out here for a while? And you can do the yoga teacher training. And I did. Changed my life. I never turned back.
My last question to you is, if there is somebody who's in a similar situation as you are with 2 young children, who's juggling with time, who wants to make something of her life, but she's finding it difficult because of the time constraints, what advice would you give to that person?
Don't give up. That's the one thing. Really don't give up. Surround yourself with people who are doing it. Find another mom who's a working mom, who seems to be successful, and get some advice off that person. Just don't be alone, and don't suffer in silence. That's all I would say.
Thank you. So there's been a lot of jewels of wisdom from Harsha, and I'm sure that the women out there, the mothers, can take it to raise the bar and take their lives to the next level. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.